Allora, iniziamo dopo i saluti istituzionali con Helga Nowotny, che è docente emerito di studi scientifici e tecnologici al Politecnico di Zurigo, oltre che presidente emerito del Consiglio Europeo della Ricerca. La professoressa Nowotny ci parlerà tanto di intelligenza artificiale, di come l'intelligenza artificiale sta avendo un impatto sulle competenze, sulle nuove competenze, sulla ricerca, sulla scienza e come la politica e diciamo, i sistemi di governo possano in qualche modo capirne di più. Il suo speech è in inglese, so the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. It is a great pleasure for me to be here at an event that is dedicated to research and business. Very much the focus is on society, and this is very important because society is the nurturing ground for skills and talents. So if you are not taking into account, whatever you are doing, that society is part of what you do, you will miss the talents and skills that come out of society. Now, I have been asked to speak, on educating intelligence, human and artificial. And it is tempting not only to think of how we educate the young generation, the children in schools, or even before they come to schools, people that are looking for jobs, to reskill, to upskill, etc., but also whether we can educate, in parentheses, artificial intelligence. It's a tempting idea because, after all, artificial intelligence in the many devices and forms that are already part of our lives, if you think of ChatGPT, that many of you probably have been experimenting with, it shows that they will be part of our lives. And just as we want children to become responsible and good members of a society, sharing our values and looking to make the world a better place, I think we also are thinking AI should be the same. We should try to get the best out of it and, in this sense, to educate them. However, as every parent of more than one child knows, every child is different, and you cannot foresee the way how each child will be different. And that's one of the crucial differences between a human child and a child as an AI. Because the AI is the same, they are identical. And if you get different answers when you use ChatGPT, it's not the AI that is different, it's you, because you are asking different questions. And according to the different questions you ask, you get different answers. But the mathematical background, the digital background is exactly the same. And also, AI is not like your child, because after all, who owns the AI? Not that you own your children, but you have special relationship with them. AI is designed and owned by international big corporations. So they are the owners of the data, the enormous amount of data that are needed to train them, and so on. So from this point of view, it is tempting to educate AI, and we have an obligation to make AI compatible, to be able to share with them life in our society. But we also have to keep in mind they are not human, they have no consciousness, they are good in imitating, and so we need to educate ourselves how to live with them. Not to believe, not to fall into the trap to believe they are human. They've been designed, the communicative generative AI, to make us believe that we speak with a human, but they are not human, and we should not fall into this trap. Now, let me take you quickly through what I see the major impact of AI and big data, first of all, on research, which is my area of competence. And here I'm struck with the fact that AI opens up some fascinating new research questions. I recently spoke to a friend of mine, a mathematician, who used the generative AI, ChatGPT-4, for a piece of algebra, a problem in algebra. And he was amazed how well the AI performed. It made some mistakes, but he said an AI, a good mathematician, also can make similar mistakes. It happens. But what surprised him most was the way how the AI reached the solution differed from the way how a human mathematician would proceed. Now, this raises the question, how does our brain work when we do algebra, which is different from the way how an artificial intelligence proceeds? There are other questions, and there are many researchers that go into it, compare the functions of the brain with the functions of AI. But then there are also questions regarding language. The large language models, as you know, are based on text, on human language. And yet, when we keep using them, what will it do to our language, to the way how we speak? And we also know how we speak and the language influences the way how we experience the world. So this is an interesting new question that we have to tackle. Another question regards something that is very much at the mind of young people and at the kind of anxieties many of young people feel today. It's about identity. What is an identity? What is my identity? How fluid is an identity, etc. And young people are very much concerned about it. And this is something that is now shaped decisively through the interaction with AI. And it's a research question. What is it in AI and the way how young people interact with AI that shapes the identity, confirms it, questions it, and so on? So I could go on with these research questions, but I find it's something that is a challenge for us. So it's not just solutions that are provided for research, but we are getting confronted with new questions, and for a researcher, they are fascinating. Another impact, of course, that is well known is that it is tremendously helpful and will influence research, especially there where big data are there, and to find solutions that can much more quickly be found by using AI. AlphaFold was the first known example of an AI being able to show protein folding, an extremely complex process, and the AI was able to come up with a solution within a very short period of time, and we will see much more of this. Now, as far as research, science is concerned, I am optimistic, because research, after all, is organized skepticism. Researchers question, and they have an obligation to question each other's results, and this is the way how science proceeds. Society and often politicians do not take this into account sufficiently because they are waiting very certain answers, yes or no, where a researcher can only say yes under certain conditions. And the knowledge we have today will probably be superseded by more and better knowledge tomorrow. It's a process. It's a process with an inherent uncertainty. This is what research is about, and it brings us wonderful results. But, and this is an important but, there is an imbalance between the funding that goes into AI research coming from the private side and the public side. I looked at the figures, and there is something like $300 billion coming from the private side, and something like 300 million both in the US and in Europe. So this is a discrepancy that is enormous, which means that the future directions of research are most likely to be determined by private funding rather than public funding. And something needs to be done. Also, many universities, even the best ones, and we heard just before, new supercomputers, etc., many universities do not have the computational infrastructure, nor do they have access to the enormous amount of data that are needed to train, to supervise, to certify what an AI is doing. And last, this is a topic I will not touch, universities are up for a major shake-up, the way how they teach, the way how they do exams, admissions, etc. Now, I know much less about business than you here in the room, but let me just say, David Autor is an economist at MIT, and he recently wrote an article making an important distinction between innovation that is automating labor, replacing labor by automation, and innovation that augments labor. And he says labor automating is happening, it has been happening for a long time, but we have gravely overestimated the productivity gains. Automation in the short term brings productivity gains to the firm that does it, but if you look at the economy as a whole, we have overestimated. However, and we have underestimated the productivity gains by labor augmenting innovation. And then there are, of course, the large language models that are already in use by financial firms. Bloomberg, for instance, has been using it for some time now. They use customer-specific data to which they alone have access. And so, again, something is growing here that points towards a concentration of knowledge, and as Bacon in the 16th century said, knowledge is power. But most important of all, in the field in which your competence is so much greater than mine, we will need new skills, and also the composition of the workforce will change. For instance, people speak already about prompting engineers. In other words, people who know how to put the right kind of questions to get the best answers out of a generative AI. Now, what is the impact of AI and big data on society? And here I see the greatest impact, that we are in for a period of much more uncertainty, and how to cope with uncertainty, ambiguity, paradoxes. So in other words, the time when society expected and politicians were eager to give clear answers, this time seems to be over. And we have to prepare society to cope with the acceleration, because the acceleration will continue. It is amazing the speed with which these developments and the impact can be felt. And it is certainly also a question how fast new jobs will be created. But going back to what I said about innovations of these two kinds, it is not just the number of new jobs that will be created, which is important. It is whether new jobs will be created around new tasks that do not exist as yet. So you, as a business community, are also challenged to to be at the forefront of defining which are the new tasks that will be the basis for creating new jobs. And nobody knows how fast any society will be able to create new jobs and how fast existing jobs will disappear. This is an open question, and much of it for the impact on society, of course, will depend, will we be able to be faster in creating new jobs than losing them. And last, there's of course the big question for liberal democracies, with the possibilities of manipulation of public opinion, of sending out fake news of all kinds, deep fakes of various kinds. And this is clearly a big challenge. Will society be able to hold together, or will we see even more of the kind of polarization we are already seeing? And last but not least, AI has this fantastic ability to hold up a mirror to society. We can use it to see what we are doing. What we are doing in the good and bad sense, we can simulate. It offers enormous possibilities for simulation. And then reflect on ourselves and what it means to be human. There are challenges for policy and governance. Everybody agrees by now, even in the US, that regulation of generative AI will be necessary. The question is how you implement it, and especially how can the gap be bridged in which Europe finds itself in the middle. On the one hand, you have the US still very much skeptical about regulation, as it might stifle innovation. On the other hand, China, with an authoritarian regime, when we speak about alignment of values, the Chinese have already done it, because every AI designed in China incorporates the values pronounced by the Chinese Communist Party. So, and Europe finds itself somewhere in the middle here. We are good in regulating. The AI Act, as you know, is now still in discussion in the European Parliament, but everyone expects that it will be finalized before the EU elections next year. And it is based on a risk approach, namely, it's not about forbidding certain things and allowing others, but having assignments of different risk zones. So you have a red zone, an orange, a green zone. There are also, for policy, not to fall into the trap of hyping again. We all tend to hype a new technology, it will solve all our problems, and then you discover it's not quite so. Big data can help you very much also in public administration, but big data have to be curated, they have to have a high quality to be useful, etc. And last but not least, as I already said, simulation is possible, and there are possibilities of sandboxing, or as it's also called, landscaping. You show what would happen if you want to make a policy decision, what would be the likely impacts on which group of society, and AI allows you to do that. Now, I come to the topic that probably is the most burning for all of us here. What is attractive for young people? Allow me to divide young people into at least 3 groups. There may be more, and I've listed them here, and I'm sure you recognize them all. Have fun and making money is an important incentive among young people. There's a subgroup here, which I've not listed. These are young researchers who want to have fun, who want to solve scientific problems. They want to have a decent living, but not necessarily making money. These are the young people that the European Research Council where I had the privilege to be president for a couple of years, and we continue to fund them, and they are an important group. The others, and there's nothing wrong with it, want to have fun and make money. Then there's those, and it's always the privilege of a young generation wanting to save the world because they say, you, the parents, the elders, you have left us in a dire state, and now we have to clean up the mess. And now it's very much focused on climate. And then there are those who search for a work and life balance. Now, the challenge is we have to come up with a way for all of these groups to work together. Because otherwise, if you look at the first group, you end up, if you only want to have skills and talents coming from those, you end up with monomaniacs who have nothing in their head except fun and making money, and they don't care about the consequences. They're overconfident, and they are the ones who disregard what will happen to society. If you only want to get talents from the second group, this may be laudable, but you may easily end up with people who disparage or who are very skeptical about technology, where it is obvious that without technology, we will not be able to tackle the challenges of climate change. And if you only look for talents from the third one, it's good for individuals if they find the work-life balance. But for society, it is much more difficult to have a work and life balance for everyone. So what can we do in order to increase the attractiveness? These are some common ingredients, I would claim. The first one is make space for curiosity. The young generation, every young person, is motivated by curiosity. Children come to the world with an inbred curiosity. Something happens when they go to school and they lose their curiosity, but nevertheless, it is part of being human. And we have to give them the conditions to be able to pursue the curiosity. Then, recognition. It is very important to create conditions that allow them to be proud of what they do, whatever the level of competence. But there is a sense I'm competent and proud in what I do. Thirdly, we need a nurturing ecosystem that is positive, that provides positive outlooks. And we very much think, well, we leave it to the schools. You know, education and the school system will take care of it. We know this is not true. Every school system, everywhere, has difficulties of its own. Why don't we put more emphasis on extra school activities? After all, the day has many more hours than those that young people spend in school. Offer them extracurricular activities, just as we offer them sports activities to bring out the talent. Why not have extracurricular activities specifically dedicated to let them compete in a friendly way, and then you find the talents and you can nurture the talents you need. And gaming is another big area where every youngster wants to be part of. And how can it be turned to advantage, to attracting people and to nurture their talent in the right way? And last but not least, attract more women. Women are not only half of society, but I think they are also a very important force in the way how AI will influence our future, and talent attracts talents. And if you want to know more, here are some of my reflections, and you can choose the language in which you want to read them. Grazie.
Grazie alla professoressa Nowotny per questo quadro abbastanza ampio su come l'intelligenza artificiale poi ha impatti su vari ambiti della società, su quanto è importante che la politica se ne renda conto e su quanto è importante per la formazione.